Today we're here with Claire Robertson, who's a PhD student, and she's interested in public health information and specifically making it more accessible and engaging through comics. So she's recently written a comic that relates to MS and the invisible symptoms that many people with MS live with. So Claire, can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you became interested in health information comics?
Yeah, of course. So I started my kind of academic journey, if you like, doing an undergrad in psychology at the University of Aberdeen. And then from there, I went on to do a master's in health psychology at the University of St Andrews. And then after my master's, I was really kind of interested in some of the specific things that we looked at there. So like readability of health information and how health information can be improved and what makes it inaccessible and things like this. So from there, I went on to do my PhD, which I'm in my third year of now. So I'm a third year psychology PhD student at the University of Aberdeen. And basically my PhD project now is all about how public health information can be made more accessible and engaging through using comics. So yeah, now I've kind of gone through psychology, focusing a little bit more about health psychology, and now I'm kind of in this division of health comics. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Cool, thank you. So can you talk a little bit about why comics are so effective at presenting health information? Because they're quite different to like the sort of traditional patient information leaflets you see that are usually quite text heavy.
Yeah.
So what are the sort of benefits of using a comic over a normal sort of patient information leaflet that you would see?
Totally. Yeah. So they are quite, it is something as well when I started my research that was also kind of something that was a bit new to me as well. And often when I speak to people about it, some people they don't know what a health comic is and they've maybe never come across one before. I would say starting to gain, they've always kind of been popular, but I think more different organizations and things are maybe uncovering what they are now. So they're becoming a little bit more maybe popular. But basically, there are a lot of different challenges communicating health information to the population for a whole host of different reasons. There's lots of different needs and abilities that all need to be catered towards for fair access to health information. So poorly communicated health information can cause confusion and distrust, which can ultimately lead to kind of risky health behaviours if they're not being able to engage with the information in the appropriate way. But successful public health information is one which the target audience can understand and acknowledge and also engage with. So my research proposes that comics can meet these healthcare challenges because they're an accessible, easily tailored medium which can be catered towards a diverse population with differing needs. And there are some communication strategies that I think comics can do really nicely that kind of set them apart from like a leaflet or a poster or something that's maybe more a standard form of health information. So things like having a narrative throughout the comic, so the sort of the use of storytelling can help engage readers and have them kind of more, more kind of engaged with what they're reading at. They're more kind of drilled in. So that's a strategy that comics use really nicely that can help with engagement. And I would probably say visual metaphors as well. So visual metaphors are often used in comics, especially in health comics, and they do a really nice job of making abstract concepts more concrete. So making things that aren't visible. So for example, something like COVID-19 particle transmission. So that's something that you can't see the process with your eyes, but a visual metaphor can do a really nice job of explaining this and showing it, which can all kind of help with understanding as well. So yeah, there is some kind of these special things that kind of comics can do really nicely that can communicate the health information clearer, I would say, than a leaflet. But they both have their kind of pros and cons, and both can be suitable for different things. But yeah.
Well, thank you. That's a really useful summary. I think it's interesting as well when you're creating health information, because I think the standard reading age of the general population is a lot lower than you would think it is, and it's you really have to bear that in mind when you're writing health information. And I think the storytelling aspect is really interesting, and also the visual stuff, which I hadn't considered. How there's some things it's just much easier to see visually, isn't it? That
Totally.
it's really a really good thing that a comic can actually do. So how did you come to write a comic that relates to MS? Do you have a personal connection to the condition?
Yeah, so I wanted to create. I was first kind of presented with you can make a health comic if you want during your kind of PhD, which I snapped at the chance to do because I really wanted to make one. And of course, the floor was open to, you can pick anything you want. It could be any health condition. It can be really whatever you want it to be on. So even that, trying to narrow it down, what do I want to kind of decide that I want to do this on? And yeah, I decided MS. My dad's got MS, so that's kind of my connection to the condition. He was diagnosed back in 2011. So it's something that I've kind of grown up around, and kind of our family has obviously, have got experience with. So I wanted to kind of make something that I felt like, although the comic is going to be used as like an experimental material within my research, I wanted something that could also exist as like a standalone resource which the health comic kind of does, that can kind of help or benefit the MS community in some way. So something with a dual purpose, basically. So chose on MS because of the connection, obviously through my dad, and then wanted to kind of make something that I could use as an experimental material, but could also be a standalone resource and help kind of MS community and things like that.
I'm sure it'll be really useful for people with MS. So can we talk a little bit about the comic itself? I should have probably mentioned the name of the comic at the beginning. So it's called Through the MS Looking Glass, Navigating the Unseen. So do you want to give a little overview of the story without revealing too much?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, the comic itself is about the kind of the invisible symptoms of MS. However, the topic, even because although I decided to do it on MS, there's obviously so many different topics within MS that you could do a comic on. There's loads and loads and loads. It's about invisible symptoms of MS. And because the topic of that is so large, there's only a select kind of number of these invisible symptoms that are included in the comic, although there's obviously a lot more. So when creating the comic, I was aware that if someone hasn't heard of MS before, the whole comic may seem a bit kind of abstract and confusing. If somebody's never come across MS and they're kind of reading it for the first time, and they might be a wee bit confused. So obviously I've used kind of accessible language and avoided any unnecessary jargon throughout. And the narrative follows I want to say like an Alice in Wonderland type story. And the reasoning for that is to kind of embed unfamiliar concepts like MS for some people in a story that's likely familiar to a lot of people. Will hopefully make it slightly less daunting and slightly less new. In saying that, if somebody's never heard of like an Alice in Wonderland, that doesn't matter. They wouldn't need to have known the story to make sense of the comic. And the invisible symptoms in the comic are represented by characters. So again, I really like visual metaphors. So making the unseen seen. So some of these invisible symptoms are kind of embodied by different characters. So you can physically see the symptom instead of somebody just saying, I feel like this or something like that. So the comic kind of snippet without trying to reveal too much. It follows the story of Poppy, and through a dream that she has, she learns what the reality of living with MS invisible symptoms can be like. And I would say that that's probably the summary. There's a lot of visual metaphors in there, and the narrative in it is hopefully quite familiar. But even if you've never come across things like Alice in Wonderland, the kind of mystical stories before, it's quite abstract, but you wouldn't need to know that to make sense of it.
Oh, I think it's really unique and creative, and I love the idea of making invisible symptoms visible characters. And yeah, I won't ruin any of them, but I think some of them are really good. So with the audience, did you have a particular audience in mind for the comic?
Yeah, so when I was making it and thinking about who it's going to be for, which was obviously one of the things I kind of had to consider right at the beginning, really, for when you're pitching the information and what level of information is it going to be for, like, people who know nothing about it? Is it going to be for people who do know something about it, just to get that right? So I've tried to keep the target audience as wide as I can, but I would say it's primarily aimed at general public, friends and family of people with MS, employers, or potentially also people who are newly diagnosed. Just because it's unlikely for those that have had MS for quite a while will probably not learn anything new from the comic, as in the symptoms won't be something that they're maybe seeing for the first time. But they may benefit from it in the sense that they can feel seen or represented, and others are going through similar challenges that they are as well. So trying to keep it as wide for everyone so everybody can maybe hopefully take something from it. So even if you've had MS and you've had your diagnosis for a while, hopefully you'll still be able to take something from it, or equally share the resource to people that you feel within your kind of network or within your group might benefit from it, or just might find it interesting. That's the plan anyway.
Yeah, I think it will be really useful for people to share with family or friends or children and sit and go through
totally.
it to actually try and understand some of these symptoms that people can't see. So I suppose this is sort of linked to what you've already said, but what were you hoping the comic to achieve?
The comic is designed to raise awareness of MS and the invisible symptoms that come with the condition, to hopefully kind of start the conversation around invisible symptoms, and to kind of help with kind of knowledge and this kind of understanding and attitudes towards invisible symptoms from kind of general public perspective. So that's the hope anyway. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's really useful, and I think it is those invisible symptoms that are sometimes the hardest to explain when fatigue is just like making your daily life impossible, and then trying to explain that to someone else is tiring. So to have a comic that you can give to someone and show them to try and help them understand is really useful. So I think you've touched a bit on this already. So how do you think your comic will help people that do struggle with invisible MS symptoms?
So the hope for that, I think, although, like I mentioned, to kind of raise awareness of symptoms, hopefully as well to kind of educate others on the topic, to improve understanding, which will hopefully lead to kind of an improvement in support for people living with MS as well. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah, I think the support thing is really important as well, isn't it? Because if other people understand the symptoms that you've got, then hopefully family and friends or health professionals can try and support you better with those symptoms. So it's really important to talk about what you're experiencing. Thank you so much for joining us and talking all about the comic. It's really interesting, and I'm sure it'll be really useful for people with MS that do struggle with those invisible symptoms. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.